Coming up, National Security Minister Tommy Turnquest lashes out at his critics, saying he's not going anywhere. Former Commissioner of Police B.K. Barnamy speaks out on the country's crime problem. He's frank and straight to the point. It's only on one station tonight. Former Immigration Minister Brian McCartney crying foul on the government for failing to deal with the problem of illegal immigration. And it's Fire Safety Week with 18 related deaths this year. What's new? We'll tell you this Monday, September 26th, on the Bahamas Tonight, starting right now.
Covering the islands of the Bahamas, ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight.
It's good to have you along this Monday. This is the Bahamas Tonight National Report. I'm Shanique Miller. It's a topic dominating conversations the country over, crime. But comments made by National Security Minister Tommy Turnquest last week has gotten him in hot water with leaders of the judiciary and opposing political factions. Well, tonight, a former police commissioner appears to agree with statements made by Turnquest, who told Rotarians last week that some magistrates have been too liberal in granting bail to repeat violent offenders. B.K. Barnamy appears on the Sawyer Report tonight. Now an attorney, Barnamy says for police, it is frustrating after having arrested alleged criminals who are later charged by the courts and then released on bail, only to be out on the streets again, picking up where they left off. He was asked, what message does this trend send?
The criminal then becomes contemptuous of law in the society. They can't do him anything, so he continues on his merry way. He becomes contemptuous. He treats everybody with contempt.
Police included?
Everybody.
Do you think
the court itself?
Do you think that is a big part of the problem that we're seeing?
That's part of it. That's part of it. That's why I said you have to be tough on crime.
Now, former Commissioner Barnamy said a zero tolerance to crime must be the standard. Society must police itself and partner with the police and report any criminal matter to the authorities. Barnamy was also asked if he agreed with Turnquest's statement regarding bail to repeat violent offenders and whether mandatory sentences are needed.
Well, there's a way to say that. Okay. I don't know how he couch his words, okay, but you can either give a magistrate discretion or you can make the sentence mandatory, okay, and that's the way that's how a parliamentarian speaks from the legislature.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, though, we need some mandatory sentencing?
In some instances, particularly firearm offenses. Mm-hmm. Particularly firearm offenses. You really need those matters to be tried by high court judges. Okay, let people go to jail for at least 10, 15 years. There's no reason why a young man should have a automatic weapon which can cause death. Mm-hmm. Why should he have it? Well, if you're going to have it, go to jail for 10 to 15 years.
You can catch the commissioner for 1 full hour on the Sawyer Report at 9 and then again at 12 at midnight right here on ZNS TV Channel 13. Well, crime has become the #1 issue around town these days, with the current murder rate in the triple digits and other serious crimes reportedly on the rise. Officers of the Royal Bahamas Police Force have their hands full. But you've heard the message before. They can't fight crime alone. The government plans to provide some much-needed help to assist in the war on crime. Tonight, National Security Minister Tommy Turnquest, who was criticized for his frank statements last week regarding bail of repeat violent offenders, talks about the latest anti-crime initiatives. Altabi's Munnings tells us more.
It's been almost 3 months since parliamentarians took their summer break, and when the House resumes next week, Wednesday, October 5th, the National Security Minister Tommy Turnquest told reporters this morning that the government plans to unveil a number of crime initiatives. These initiatives are designed to maintain law and order throughout the Bahamas.
You'll probably give parliamentarians a week or so to review them and then have a debate, but they will be presented on Wednesday, the 5th of October, and we believe that one of the things that they're designed to do is make it easier to keep criminals in prison as opposed to out on bail or getting off on technicalities.
Minister Turnquest spoke of the millions of dollars the government has already spent on manpower and equipment for the Royal Bahamas Police and Defense Forces. He also confirmed that the remand court at Her Majesty's prisons should be completed in a matter of days. But all this work done by the Ingram administration is criticized as not enough. The Democratic National Alliance issued a weekend press release calling on the National Security Minister to resign. The DNA claims that with no end in sight to the epidemic of murders and violent crimes that is swiftly engulfing our nation's capital, the Bahamian people have lost faith in the Minister of National Security's ability as the right man to lead the most important national security agency at this time.
I don't think I'm under fire. I don't feel as if I'm under fire. I feel that what I'm doing is right. And I've been elected by the Bahamian people to serve. I intend to serve. You know, the one thing I don't like are namby-pamby, wishy-washy politicians. You either stand for something or you don't.
Despite the controversy on crime, though, the National Security Minister maintains his aim is to fulfill his ultimate goal, that's serve the Bahamian people.
We want to ensure that we have the legislative framework in place, that criminals do not get an easy ride in our country. That I have a document where we have all of the murder victims for 2011. One side of the page, on the other side of the page, we have, in those cases where we have suspects, who those suspects are. It will astound you to see the number of criminals known to the police as both victims and suspects.
Altaviz Munnings, ZNS News.
Now, Turnquest's comments must have hit a note as the courts have denied bail to accused attempted murderer 29-year-old Ernest Forrest. The Lincoln Boulevard resident was arraigned before Chief Magistrate Roger Gomez in Court Number 1 today for attempting to kill Arlington Store back in April of this year. Forrest was not called on to plea. His attorney argued for him to be released on bail, but Gomez refused, stating that the murder rate is extremely high and the courts must be extremely careful in granting bail. The judge's statement comes on the heels of comments by National Security Minister Turnquest last week, stating that judges are too liberal in granting bail, particularly to repeat offenders. Meantime, the case has been adjourned to November 9th, when a voluntary bill of indictment will be filed. Well, summer has officially ended, and that is good news for BEC consumers, as this past summer could easily be summed up as frustrating for consumers who had to endure numerous power outages. Altaviz Munnings has this progress report.
BEC Chairman Michael Moss confirmed that the corporation hired temporary disconnectors to assist in its national disconnection exercise mounted last week. While he couldn't disclose exact numbers or how much money the corporation incurred, New Providence residents, he said, are ensuring that their power supply remains operational.
I think that in recent times in particular, BEC has been fairly low on a lot of persons' priority list. I see people walking around with 2 cell phones and they're speaking very, very easily on both of them, and yet they seem not to have the time, the desire, the willingness to satisfy and meet an electricity supply obligation. And so we want to make sure that people begin to view us a little bit higher up the totem pole.
And hopefully less disconnections mean less power outages. BEC contracted 4 emergency 20-megawatt generators this summer to fulfill the power demand supply here in New Providence. BEC officials can only utilize them for 13 weeks, and they hope that when that period is over, their Clifton Pier power plant generators should be fully operational.
The temporary units have served us well, but they do come with a cost, a price tag. But it is a price tag we believe it was essential for us to bear, given the number of disruptions in supplies that were taking place to our customers. We thought we had to put that behind us. We have 340 megawatts of plant on the ground, and our peak 230 megawatts. On paper, there should be 100 megawatts of spare plant sitting around.
Then there's the question, do you really examine your electricity bill? Well, there are many who really don't, and that may mean you can't skip the amount you pay BEC for fuel. Mr. Moss explains.
The basic rate is what comes to BEC and stays with BEC. That basic rate gives us the revenues to pay salaries, to pay for maintenance, to pay for capital expenditure, and to pay for all of those miscellaneous things like insurance cover and the like. The fuel charge, that goes to pay the fuel bill. None of that remains in BEC.
Altaviz Munnings, ZNS News.
Well, some good news from the public service tonight. Those much-anticipated increments promised by the Ingram administration at the start of the 2011-2012 fiscal year have been dispersed. Well, at least some of them. That's according to Public Service Union President John Pinder. In an interview with ZNS News today, Pinder said he's pleased that during these difficult financial times, his members are finally receiving relief.
Now, while they can hide behind the fact that they didn't give a date for the back payment of those who are the max of their salary scales, they certainly said that promotions would have been released effective the 1st of July, and that the increments should also be released. A number of persons are saying that they're now receiving the increment on the incremental month, which means that persons who incremental month was July, August, and this coming September should receive the increments if they were the max of their salary scales. The scales have been open to 2 increments more.
Now, this announcement comes exactly 4 days before members of the Public Service Union head to the polls. Pinder is seeking a 3rd consecutive term as president. Win or lose, he revealed some of the items on his wish list he hopes to make reality.
I think I've done the best I can. A lot of promises that I made is at the table waiting to be negotiated in terms of trying to get them better pensions and better increments and health insurance for everybody. Those things are on the table. The main thing we want to be able to accomplish is a promotional board, where the government should appoint a promotional board for the public service and have union representation on that board to just make it a more transparent, fairer one and more timely. The 2 things I wish I would have been able to accomplish this term in office would have been, certainly I wish I was able to complete the East Street South project. And the second thing, I really wish we were able to get agency shop.
The BPSU election is Friday between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. A special poll for the Department of Environmental Health employees will also be held at BPSU Hall from 7 in the morning until 10. Former Minister of State for Immigration Brian McCartney believes that much more can be done to stem the tide of illegal immigrants coming into the country. The leader of the Democratic National Alliance, who resigned from the governing Free National Movement earlier this year, is crying foul on the government for what he says is this administration's refusal to deal with the illegal immigration problem.
Illegal immigration is out of control. We don't have the political will to deal with it. They don't want to do anything about it. They are regularizing and giving citizenships like crazy. Passports are being given out. It seems as if the government is desperate because they want to use persons as pawns in this upcoming election to the detriment of our country.
Now, while in the FNM, McCartney reported to the media that there are at least 37 Haitian villages here in New Providence. In calling on the government to do the right thing regarding reducing illegal immigration, McCartney says, by the law, the government is required to gazette photographs of all applicants seeking citizenship. But he says, from his viewpoint, this is not always the case.
I've not seen one photograph in the papers for someone applying for citizenship. I've not seen one.